Good morning, my people, my good friends, and my fam, my extended buddies, and all of you abroad, all of you watching, you Man United fans, you football fans everywhere. Big up to you today. It's the international break, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of boring for most of you, but those of you who love international football like me, God, it has to be a good break to get to see a national team play. And I'm going to watch mine play tomorrow. It's going to be a very good game for Trinidad versus Canada, looking for a win. Jamaica wasn't able to get a win last night against the USA, but it was something to see, guys. I think the refereeing needs to be checked in CONCACAF because I am sorely disappointed with the referee. I think Jamaica was robbed. I think they've rigged it so America got through. But at the same time, you know what? We're here for Manchester United, guys, and it's the Morning Views Manchester United news with your boy MarkN, MUFC fan. Big up to all of you watching. Welcome to the show, and we're talking about the medical disaster at Manchester United. A disaster class and all the advice given to the manager, given to the members in the back room on decisions made this season to let players go back and cut short loans for certain players like the left back Serge Regulon and other players who have been missing from the squad due to injury and poor management by the medical staff. The medical staff is responsible for the double surgeries on the likes of Tyrone Malacia as well as Lissandro Martinez, and the list keeps growing. Manchester United had suffered so many injuries this season, guys. It's a wonder we're still in the situation we are competing and probably, still with a shot of getting top four. I know a lot of people may not be thinking it might be happening, but you know what, guys? It could be on the cards. If you look at the month of April and the fixtures that are facing the teams, I would bet on Manchester United to win most of theirs because at the end of the day, the real difficult tasks we face are Arsenal and Liverpool. The rest, I'm pretty sure Manchester United is getting over the line with them. Even the Bournemouth game, where we lost 3-0 earlier this season, I thought that was a fluke. I thought that was disappointing. Most of all, Manchester United threw away their opportunities like they usually do early in the game. Big up to everyone joining me. Melton Ball Game, I see you're here. Stephanie, big up to you. Guys, take this time. If you're joining me for the first time, don't forget to smash the like buttons and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and get on to the next one so you can help the community grow. Guys, it's if you enjoy the content, share it around. And don't forget, those of you joining on X, give it a retweet. Hope you guys having a good morning. Let's get right into the show. Big up to you, Stephanie Griffith. And it's true, the medical situation is in need of urgent medical attention. It is shocking that it has been neglected so badly, like most areas in our club. Angry face, just like the one I'm putting on. It's really, really disappointing when you look at it for a professional club, the likes of Manchester United, with such a storied history of winning things and being at the forefront of the best and the brightest for so long, have felt so far and so low that our medical department are probably not even on the level of championship division. Guys, it's so disappointing. How many injuries? We've heard it last season. Anthony Martial complaining about how the medical treatment has brought his body to fragility, and it's not just based on him. And though he's injury prone, he could have been, not so injury prone if it was done with better sports, medical assistance, care, advice, and decisions. And you know what, guys? We can't all blame this on Ten Hag. And I'm not just trying to say that, but it's in the same breath as saying, how do we blame someone who doesn't do that? That's not their job. And if you're a leader, you're supposed to delegate responsibility to the best of those around you. This is how a leader leads. And Eric Ten Hag has been following the advice of these, I don't even know if I should call them medical associates or medical delegates or, representatives, because, they have not been doing a good job. Their advice has been more like sabotage rather than supplemental. And it's just shocking. Shocking. You know what I mean? We are in a state of disarray. Injuries are abundant. And you know what? Our season has kept on getting derailed by the lack of consistency. And, we blame the consistency on the manager. And sure, maybe he could be making different decisions in terms of the setup and the system to suit the squad that he has available, but at the same time, you should definitely, in some cases, live by the sword and die by it as well. And I back the manager in his decision to stay strong and hold steadfast, at least to the majority of his principles. And while it may be difficult and it might expose some of the players, it will also highlight the need for change at Manchester United, and not just change in the structure and in the back room, not just change in the squad, but in the medical staff. And as we know, Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his team, they have took over minority stake ownership of the club, and the decisions he has been making thus far, any decision that would make a Manchester United proud, we are speaking on lots of these things for years and years. And you know what? It would be disingenuous of me not to think that probably he's already made the decision to sack them off. As you've been hearing news on Twitter and all the different media that, maybe 27% of Manchester United staff are about to be axed. And I think in that 27%, 100% of the medical staff is part of that deal, because the guys have been shocking. Their decisions have been ridiculous. And you know what? I would like to hear what my buddy Mental Ball Game has to say. I don't know if he's going to come in, but if he does, I definitely would like to hear what he has to say. I may have one or two guys coming in. I'm not too sure if they're going to be available, but we'll go carrying on with or without them. And I'm going to mention to you guys the news. The most recent attacks on the shoddy recommendations and diagnosis of the medical staff has come from Casemiro, none other than the Brazilian midfield maestro, the destroyer, the babyface assassin. Casemiro has come in, and he's been feeling a pain in his thing. He went to the medical department. They assessed his injury and they said, no, there's nothing there. But the midfielder was still feeling pain. So you know what he did? He went to Barcelona, and he went to a doctor who usually has seen about him before his time in the Premier League and on occasions that he trusts. And the doctor found an injury. He found something that is possibly going to be, you know, a problem for Casemiro going forward. And if he had played, it could have been worse, maybe season ending. Guys, this is very important. And big up to all of you joining me, because you know what? This is crazy. The Glazers have let us down completely. Manu Tata, when I was a young kid watching football, Manchester United was like the fable story tale. You know what I mean? The dream. You know what I mean? Just to be able to be a fan, it was like something majestic. And as a football fan myself, all the way from the islands, a little dot in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, guys, it's something you have to enjoy when you watch. You have different clubs like Real Madrid, and you look at their progress, you look at their history and what they have done consistently. And as we know, one of the first football clubs to have an oxidized chamber was Manchester United, and this was used to help facilitate the rehabilitation of players to speed up recovery. And we had this back in the 90s, guys. You know what I mean? We had the best facilities, best in class at those days, but never upgraded. 10 years has passed, more even, since the Glazers have been here, and no upgrades. It's disappointing, guys. It's disappointing. Big up to you, Will Man United, coming in, my bro. The link is in the description, bro. If you want to come in and have your say, bro, jump in. You know what? You know what I mean? We've just been linked to Drewsbury Hall. Hope you're well. Big up to you, my bro. Rumors doing my head in. He's the best to stay away. Ten Hag all the way. Don't want the pizza nut manager. Bro, I'm telling you, it's crazy how we beat Liverpool and the first news after is Southgate to United. Guys, it's really crazy the way they do these things. Mental Ball Game is here, guys. Big up to you, my bro. How you doing this morning? Hope you're well.
Morning, mate. Morning. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well as well.
Chilling, chilling. You know how it
Ye-
is, man.
Yeah. I mean, at this medical department thing, right? We've had problems with medical department over the years. I mean, even when Sir Alex was here, if you remember, when Evra went to Juventus, he had a story to tell. He said he was usually vomiting after the matches and everything, and medical department wasn't able to find out what it was. And when he went to Juventus, they did some tests on him and found out that he was allergic to, I think, eggs or something. And he had been having problems over a long period of time at Man United, and no one at the medical department was able to find out what the problem was, and they did it in a few weeks in Juventus. So we've had this problem for a very long time, and I think we had some injuries last season, but this season has been horrendous, man. There's been so many injuries. I think you can put some of it down to the workload because of all the matches that we played last season. But then the the way that we've handled the injuries, especially Leach's injury, where we got him back when he wasn't fully healed, that was really bad. Didn't we sign the Arsenal sports medicine head? I think Gary O'Driscoll or someone who was working at Arsenal for 13, 14 years, and we signed him this September. So hopefully there's some. I mean, hopefully he's done some research in the background and found out some things that need to be improved, and maybe he's given his recommendations to Sir Jim. But if you look at Arsenal's injury record this season, they've been excellent, man. They've rarely had any injuries this season. So I'm not sure if we've signed the right guy because he's left and Arsenal haven't had any injuries. But yeah, I think this is a problem. We do need a revamp of the medical department for sure, man. Sir Jim Ratcliffe needs to do that.
Yeah, and as you mentioned him, I was about to mention him if you didn't, because I would like to highlight that if you look just shortly back at last season at Arsenal and the season before, what was one of their suffering issues at Arsenal?
Yeah, they missed out on title because of the Saliba injury, didn't they? It was injury.
And the season before they had multiple injuries that they could not figure out. And
Yeah,
guess what? We hired the guy who was the head of their department, while
yeah.
Arsenal hired some of the new upcoming best in class sports medical practitioners. So I'm not trying to blame Gary O'Driscoll, but I'm just saying, maybe it's time for change. You know what I mean? And maybe the ways of the old, and when I say the old, I mean, there are certain systematic processes that have been cut, but there are new ones that are being initialized now, and new practices being taken, and we haven't seen any of those things or heard of any of those things happening at Manchester United. It's almost same old for me. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I just feel like, the way Sir Jim Ratcliffe has dealt with the appointment of Omar Barada, he's going after Dan Ashworth. I just feel like he's probably eyeing that as a full revamp. We know his best bud in crime, Dave Brailford is one of those who's, very good when it comes to sports science and what he has done for British cycling, whether good or bad, despite the scandal or whatnot alleged. And, I just assume that this is one of the key factors that they're going to be hitting hard before the summer comes.
Yeah, as they should. And that's the thing that it just tells you the task that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the team who's coming in have got on their hands. It's not just looking at the future, but it's also clearing the mess that's been created by Ed Woodward and John Murtaugh and all these people for the last 10 years. Because if you've just hired Gary O'Driscoll last year or just September, basically, it hasn't even been a year yet. How do you get rid of him now? You'll have to pay some compensation to him as well. So it's a mess at the moment, but they do need to get on it and start clearing it. And I think that's the main thing that the fans need to understand, that there's a lot of mess behind the scenes, and a club doesn't become successful instantly. You have to clear all that mess and then put structure in place, put everything in place, and then you start becoming successful and start seeing the results on the pitch. So
100.
it's going to take at least, I would say, at least 2 seasons before we see any improvements under Sir Jim Ratcliffe. So fans would really have to be patient, man.
100%. I mean, don't get me wrong, mental. Like as much as I have the high standards for Manchester United, and it's a really big thing for me having a Trinidadian play for Manchester United, especially playing the treble winning squad. So it's something for me that I will always try to be as supportive as a fan to Manchester United, because I feel like they give chances where others don't for a really big club. And I'm not trying to say they should sack Neil Driscoll, but maybe hire some young minds, some more innovative styles around him. Because one thing that strikes me is that for a professional, he should be able to adapt and evolve. And if you hire some new school around, maybe it gives him more tools in his arsenal to manage the department better. And I'm saying that because maybe his directorship is pretty good, you know what I mean, but maybe he needs better assistance around him, because technically it's one of those things where it's a team at the end of the day inside of our football team. You know what I mean? And I know Manu Tata is a little bit mad that I'm mentioning Arsenal's injury list, but they don't have a small squad, bro. If you go on transfer market and check the size of Arsenal's squad, it's just as big as Manchester United's. And it's been that way for the last 4 seasons, bro. So I understand that they sound like they don't have depth when you look at the starters from the bench list that they have. But at the same time, if you look at our starters from the bench list, what's the difference? There's none. And actually, we have more young players on our bench than almost any team this season, until Liverpool started playing all these youngsters like what the FA Cup game ago. You know what I mean? So I think you need to look at it from the same perspective. And yes, Sir Jim might be saying things like, "Let's bring the Manchester in Manchester back. A British core is needed," and all these things. But at the same time, if you listen to the players that he mentioned in his top players, he mentioned two international foreigners. You know what I mean? Cristiano Ronaldo and Eric Cantona. So, guys, it's not something that I'm gonna hold Sir Jim to. I'm waiting to see what he does, but I do expect him to make some decisions and critical, and then move fast. And you just hear the results, like we heard with Omar Barada. At the same time, I'm gonna back this manager, because at the same time, unlike you, Manu Tata, you're thinking, be ready for the outcome when we play the angry tiger clubs, stinging bees. But at the same time, it's just for it. I don't know if you might think so, mental ball game, but I just have this funny feeling that we will do a double on Liverpool at Old Trafford this season. So I just feel like it's written in the stars. We're gonna derail their title hopes. What do you think?
Well, let's hope so. Based on the performance in the last match, I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, before the FA Cup tie, if someone would have said we'll do the double in the two matches that are coming up, FA Cup and League, we'll beat them in both, I would have said you're crazy. But looking at the way players performed in that match, I think it's not impossible to beat them at Old Trafford in the league match as well. And hopefully we'll have Licha back then as well. So and Hoyland would be fitter. We have to remember that in this match, even though Hoyland started, he was coming back from an injury, so he wasn't on his 100%. So hopefully we have the full squad available for that match, and then if we do, we can definitely beat them. I mean, we've certainly got the quality in the squad. It's just the effort. Um, when we put in the effort, we get the results we've seen. So if we can put in the efforts, we can definitely beat them.
Yeah, big up to you, GB, coming in. Good morning. And I think everyone is enjoying their morning. You know what I mean? It's one of those weeks Manchester United won. We're in an international break. So there's, good vibes still. And as much as like, yeah, mental, like I'm super positive usually all the time, because at the end of the day, I'm a Manchester fan. But at the same time, I look at Lissandro Martinez is back. He's training with Argentina. He's undergone a medical there, and they're already saying that he's almost fully fit. He'll be given some minutes, but will be measured based on his recovery timing. And there's also players going to be, given chance to rest. Bruno Fernandes scored last night for Portugal. His run of form is continuing. And
That
every time Bruno goes to Portugal, he gets in that good form. He comes back. He usually keeps the form, at least for the next two games. And I look at, we have also Aaron Wan-Bissaka. He played his first game back, had a really good game, in my opinion, playing off the left back, which I also had suggested in a stream previously to the game, that he should be the guy to mark Salah, because I was feeling that when Salah is always like up against a defender who puts in heavy tackles. He always gets thrown off his game and doesn't always usually end up contributing. He did get that goal in the end of the game, but I think it was pretty lucky in my opinion. It's lucky that the ball ricocheted off the post just enough to fall to him. And I look at then we have other players returning like Mason Mount. I'm not a huge fan, but I think he strengthens our midfield. He gives us more options. You know, you see Anthony coming back in form. Amad Diallo scored the winner. Must have been great for the young kid. I'm expecting him to, after the game back, because he's going to be banned for the next game, which is probably against Brentford. I think he's going to come back again right in time for Liverpool as well. And for me, when I look at it, I could only see Manchester United getting stronger and more, more defensive options, more attacking options going forward. And, it's possibly going to be a game where Manchester United, you might just see a better Manchester United.
Yeah, that's true. And you mentioned Bruno there, and we're talking about medical science, man. That guy is a freak, man. He, after the Liverpool match, by the time the Liverpool match ended, I thought he was seriously injured, and that he would take a break from the internationals and just get few minutes here and there. But that guy played 90 minutes again, and kept running and kept running. I think our medical team need to find a way to replicate his genes, and put it in every other player, man. That guy is really a fitness freak, man. He's a freak of nature.
He reminds me of Wayne Bridge, who used to play at Chelsea. You know what I mean?
John
And
Terry's
he
best mate.
also there's a few other players that come to mind. Mentality guys that always fit. Even Ronaldo, I would say in his stint before the last 2-3 seasons was like one of the fittest players, never really injured as much. And when you have players like that, it's infectious to the squad because these players scream work ethic. You know what I mean? Good management, good diet, proper training ethics. It's not just God given genetics at the same time. They had to work hard in order to help develop it in the right way. I would
And
always say it like that.
you could see it as well. I think if you watch the match, and you look at the facial expressions of players closely, right? You can see that McTominay and Garnacho both are struggling. Garnacho was pretty much struggling the whole match. I think he was injured in that match, and he was struggling even when who's I think Anthony scored or when Rashford scored. If you look at Garnacho in the background, he's really wincing with pain, man. And you look at McTominay when he passed to Rashford for the goal, the third goal. As soon as he passed, even while he was passing it, he was having cramps, and as soon as he passed, he fell on the ground. So I think as you said, it is infectious because they see Bruno doing it. They think that even though they have their pains, they have to increase their pain threshold and go and give their all to the team. So it's good to see, but I just hope they don't do it too much where they get injured, or they play injured and make the injury even more severe than it should be.
100%. Like that's the one thing I'm also concerned about. But for me, when I look at the list of games and stuff like that, I see they still have time to rest. You know what I mean? For me, I think Garnacho is probably going to get a few minutes here and there for Argentina, so I think he's going to get more rest than most. Bruno might not play in the next game, which I've already heard because of the fixture. It's not one of their biggest fixtures. So in my opinion, I'm looking forward to seeing some of these players rested. I'm happy for Kobe Mainu getting called up to the English squad. At the same time, I'm not really stressed by it. I know a lot of fans are thinking it's too soon for him. Whether he gets game time or not, I think it's a good thing for him to get the call up after earning the merit. Having 15 consecutive games of at least a 7 out of 7 performance, it's something that's not exactly the norm for a teenager in the Premier League or in any top league. You know what I mean? So for me, he deserved to get a call up. Whether he deserves to start or not, or given some minutes, I think that will be up to the performances of the players on the days if he's in the squad on the bench. So I look at it like a positive. I hear a lot of people talking about burnout, but I feel like the burnout thing for me is another one of those sensational phrases, buzzwords that people are using nowadays just to illustrate something that happened before. Because if you look at it, there are lots of examples of young players like Wayne Rooney, like Cesc Fabregas. I could go on and on. Like Messi, like Ronaldo. And I mean, when I say that, I'm not trying to say that they are on that level. They haven't done it for the period of time that some of those players have done it for. But you've seen all these players never burn out. And there are lots of other young players and talents who have been playing and playing and playing, and they don't burn out. Look at Jude Bellingham. You know what I mean? So I just feel like, sometimes, players can burn out. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm saying, you can't just assume that every single player is going to suffer the same fate.
Yeah, and I think when you say burnout, it one is physical burnout, the other is mental burnout, isn't it? It's easy to recover physically, but it's very hard to recover mentally, for especially for young players, I think. So I think in that sense, Ten Hag has been handling it really, really well. I think he doesn't have any alternative for Garnacho, so he has to start Garnacho. And again, everything, all the issues that we have, eventually somehow, all the roads lead back to the board and the mismanagement of the board. If we had the squad of good enough players that Ten Hag can rotate his players, we wouldn't be talking about this burnout thing, right? If he had someone, a very good player to replace Garnacho with, and our players don't help our club as well. I mean, if he had Sancho, who hadn't done this silliness, he could have rotated Garnacho a bit more with Sancho. So I think it's just that he doesn't have those options, so he has to play Garnacho. And Garnacho has shown the form that he deserves to start as well. There's no reason for him to take him out. And I think he's done well with Kobe as well. He's starting him in the games, but when he sees that he's getting tired a little bit or the intensity is going down, he takes him out for a few minutes, which is good management because you don't want to burn your midfielder. And the way our midfield is set up, Kobe's doing so much running that it's necessary for him to take him out. You don't want him to
100%.
burn out physically as well.
100%, 100% agree. And Manu Tata, like, I'm not gonna say I agree. I agree on this comment. To be fair, I like the performance that Ahmad gave, but at the same time, I feel like he needs to come on a few more games and give some minutes because at the same, like, I'm not genuinely gonna start him ahead of Bruno because I think he performed better, excuse me, centrally in the game. I don't think he was pulling up threes off the wing. I think his best performances in the game was when he shifted to a central attacking position. So maybe he could share some minutes with Hoyland and Bruno. You know what I mean? He could offer a rotation as a false nine. He could offer a rotation as a cam, and I think that's the best use of would be the best use of Amad Diallo. You know what I mean? I mean, like he scored a very very big goal. He had a very good performance, but don't take it away from the other players' performances who were performing well in the game. Bruno had a very good game. And I think Hoyland is his performance because he didn't get a goal was really understated by most. Because if he was giving Van Dijk, you know, decisions to make the entire game. He had both Kwanzaa and Van Dijk on him, and they had to choose which one was going to go first and which one was going to, cover. And that was creating lots of openings for the other attackers during the game. Garnacho's performance, as you've been talking about, for me, it's one of those things where I don't want to jinx it, but he definitely gives me that Ronaldo vibe because it's the games that he shows up in, it's the performances that he's dropping, it's the attitude that he's showing. And maybe he didn't have that amazing spark, that sensational dribble, that lightning quick step over like Ronaldo had when he in his first season. You know what I mean? But he's definitely playing with the spark of I will bring it home that Ronaldo had in his first and second season.
He's got that X factor, isn't it? As soon as he gets the ball, you're on the edge of your seat, expecting something to happen, like we used to do when Rashford broke through. Not so much anymore, but when he was breaking through, he used to, as soon as he used to get the ball, he used to be excited that something's going to happen. He's going to do something and create something for us. That's the feeling you get with Garnacho. And he's got the inconsistencies of the younger Ronaldo as well, where he doesn't always make the right decision at the moment. But I think 1 or 2 seasons more, and then Garnacho would be really, really good, man. We'll have a really world class talent on our hands. I just hope this all this Madrid or after Garnacho stuff doesn't really becomes serious, because I don't want to lose him to Madrid.
I mean, I agree and I share that sentiment. At the same time, I look at it like we have so much talent on our wings. So much talent. Like, it, a lot of people might give up on Anthony already. I'm not giving up on him. And I also think that he would make a great left back. You know what I mean? Like in the games where we need rotation, and let's just say the wingers are performing really well. You don't want to take him out. You could still throw him in there because he could offer that attacking going forward. And he was very good defensively against Liverpool. So,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give up on our players just yet. I feel like there are lots that they can offer. I feel like there's some talent there. Look, even on loan, Palestri's been doing well at Granada. You know, Mason Greenwood has being sensational for Getafe. Like he's contributed to every good thing that they've done this season. So I look at it from the perspective where the wings is never really a big issue for Manchester United. It's the performance of the players. You know what I mean? Like Rashford is hugely talented. He has all the right mechanics, but he just doesn't deliver in some games. So maybe, the more and more with the performance that they've shown last weekend, that he might just kick on and spur on the season. Because as you know, Rashford is one of those players that is like he needs to be in a good vibe. You know what I mean? And I feel like the only thing he could positively be is in a good vibe at this moment because he scored a very big goal on Sunday and then he's off at England duty where he usually enjoys himself. So I expect him to come back in the first game fit, good mental health, very ready to perform, and I expect to see a big game from him.
Yeah, and his mother also recently came out and said that he's lost a dear friend and a cousin over the last 12 months that seems to have been affecting him, and now he seems to be coming back to his natural self. So hopefully he's over it. I mean, he's had time to process that, and he can start being himself on the pitch. I mean, let's hope that it was those those losses that were affecting him mentally, and that's why it was reflecting on the pitch. And now that he's over it, hopefully he'll start performing on the pitch as well. I think sometimes we forget, we treat players as robots. We just think once you're on the pitch, you need to perform. We have no idea what's going on in the background. We have no idea how their kids are. We have no idea how their partners are, whether they are sick, they're handling the kids, whether they have to do the school run, whether they have to take their parents back home if it's a foreign player. There's so many things that are going on in a human's life, but we don't treat players as humans. We just think once you're on the pitch, you need to be 100%. And as fans, I think we have the right to expect that as well, because you're in a privileged position where you're playing for the team, where millions would give their arm and leg to play for that team. But you have to sometimes we have to take note of the mental health of the player as well, where he is. And I think that's where Eric Ten Hag, again, I like what he does because he tries to shield players from the media. He hasn't criticized Rashford even a single time, maybe because he knows what's happening in the background, and he knows that he's got the qualities. Even if he's bad for 80 minutes, even if he gives me 10 minutes from the 90, he can produce 2 goals in those 10 minutes, and then that's golden for me. So we don't know what's going on in the background. Let's just hope that whatever it was that was affecting Rashford is over and he comes back to his best, because everyone as fans, all of us want to see him succeed, man. we don't want to
100%.
we don't want to sell him to PSG. I know most of the fan base would be happy to see him go to PSG at the moment, but somewhere at the back of their head they would have that regret that an academy graduate, our boy, didn't succeed at Man United, and we desperately want him to succeed at United.
To be fair, I'd hold my hand up and say I'm one of the fan base that wouldn't mind if the 75 million came in. And I'm saying that because, I was worried about the fact that maybe, he maybe needs a new challenge or something because at the end of the day, he's been here almost 10 years. You know what I mean? And he might be jaded, you know what I mean? Like week in, week out. And then, you hear the rumblings in the background about his losses and certain things happening. We know before the season started, he lost his fiance in terms of they split, and all these things must be affecting the young lad. And I'm certainly one of the fans that would say, you know what, guys, players' personal lives are their personal life. We shouldn't be discussing it. We shouldn't be trying to make issue with it. Take it up on ourselves to decide that they should be behaving some way based on that. We should let them be able to have their personal life and do their thing and come out and perform on the field. And sometimes I would actually say it though. Sometimes a player is having a bad season. It's just that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I feel like people want so many explanations for why a player is not in good form, and sometimes there's just no explanation. Sometimes it's just not clicking. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's sport. Like you see it with the best tennis players. You see it with the best basketballers. Sometimes they just have a run of bad games, and then they pick themselves back up, and the form comes back. Little by little. You got to start with the basics. And I would say, Manu Tata is asking us, what do we think? Which player should Eric Ten Hag be thankful for to save his job so far? And I wouldn't even say it like that. I would say it that they're not just saving his job. I would say they're also saving themselves, because a lot of the fan base, like myself, we have been over a lot heavily critical on some of the performances of these players. And you know, with the performances, you can see it clear as day. Some of them haven't been doing their best. In some games, we might have felt that we haven't seen the effort that we usually see from them in certain other games, or we have seen last season. And you know what? I feel like it's synergetic. The manager and the players are both saving their self to carry themselves into next season and push on. Because I can't genuinely say Eric Ten Hag needs to save his job, in my opinion, because we are in a rebuild, and as much as you don't want to acknowledge that, even though it's the second season of a rebuild, and yes, we are not in the top four right now, which we were last season. It might seem to you like a regression when we change our style of play, which he was not able to really do in the first season, right? Because he was lacking certain key aspects, including he never got his, marquee signing, which would be Frankie De Jong. Now we see a replacement emergence of Kobe Mainu of sorts. You know what I mean? He has Andrew Nana at the back, but we haven't really got our back line with Lissandro Martinez, who's like the key cog in defense for that system, available for more than 4 to 5 games in a run 2 times a season over like what 27, 30 games. You know what I mean? So when you look at it from the perspective where Eric Ten Hag has been always having to adjust, and not only adjust based on availability of players, but decisions and advice from the medical staff. And I have to home in on that because this is what the stream is really about. Talking about the failures of the medical staff this season and the amount of injuries and the mismanagement, how they have not dealt with the diagnosis properly, or maybe did proper assessment of some of these players, or in-depth assessment in some circumstances, and what it has left the manager to have to deal with and fans to have to watch. And you know what, like, I'm not gonna say McTominay alone, bro. I think not just McTominay. I think Hoyland's performance since January, when he was, we started this new year, was one of the major impacts on the position where United is right now, because he went on a 7-game goal streak. It's the longest scoring streak in the Premier League of anyone on at his age so far. You know, so he scored 7 goals in 6 games. The only one with a higher streak than that is Van Nistelrooy, and Hoyland could still keep that streak up because he hasn't played a Premier League game since he's been injured. So it's one of those things for me, mental ball game, that I look at it from the perspective where there are several players' performances that are lifting this team, lifting this manager back into contention. So I won't say it like he's saving his job alone, because some of these players have to save their careers. Because if we don't finish well, their value drops. You know, is there really going to be interest from lots of other clubs for them at the same level, based on how everyone has been seeing from the eye test this season so far?
yeah. Agree. And I don't really believe in players saving managers' job and players doing it for the manager. I think every player should have the mentality when they go out on the pitch that they're going out for the fans. When people say these players have down tools and are not playing for the manager, that's really disrespectful to the fans, because it's not the manager who you need to play for, it's the fans that you need to play for. It's the club that you need to play for. Don't care who the manager is, whether you get along with him or not. And as you're saying, McTominay is not going out there and scoring the goals. He doesn't have in his mind thinking, I need to save Eric Ten Hag's job. He's been here for 4 or 5 managers now. So he knows even if the manager changes, I'm probably going to be here. And if you look at it, it's probably better for him if the manager goes. Because if a new manager comes in, he has to assess all the players again. So if Eric Ten Hag has actually decided that he needs to get rid of McTominay, by McTominay scoring those goals, he's actually hampering his progress at the club. So it's his benefit if Eric Ten Hag goes and a new manager comes in. Every player gets a new fresh slate and fresh start, and the new manager starts assessing players again. So I don't agree that it's the players who save managers' job. I think it's every player's responsibility that when they cross that white line, they need to play for the fans. Give your all for the fans. And also Manditata mentioned that the club forced Eric Ten Hag not to criticize Rashford. I don't personally agree with that, man. I don't think
Me
that
either.
the club can tell the manager not to say something or to say something. They can probably give him subtle hints that this player is important for us. But at the end of the day, Eric Ten Hag also knows the fans can see the player on the pitch. It's not like the fans don't see what the player is doing on the pitch, whether he's performing or not. So he's come out and he said that he's not on his level, and he's also come out and said that he believes in him, that he will get back. The only way there's different ways you can get a player back to form, right? You can take him out and make him sit on the bench, or you can keep playing him and hope that by playing, giving him more playing time, he comes back to the form. And I think Eric Ten Hag is doing the second one where he's putting him on the pitch and expecting him to regain that confidence by just being on the pitch. And it seems to be working a little bit now. Even though I personally think he should have substituted him or put him on the bench way earlier in the season. But
Okay.
again, Eric Ten Hag doesn't really have any options to bring on if he replaces Rashford. Who's going to score the goal that Rashford scored against City? Those are the moments that Rashford can produce, and that's why Ten Hag has to keep him on the pitch. It's very easy for fans to say, oh, take him out, take him out. If he replaced Rashford and he brought out Pelistri hasn't done anything to justify replacing Rashford in the team. He hasn't scored any wonder goals. He hasn't taken any game by the scruff of the neck and say, I'm going to win you the game. Rashford has such a good record against the big teams, against the top six. He always scores or provides an assist. So he has to trust his star player.
True. Like, Manu Tata, I know it might seem at the expense of opportunity, but you can clearly say, because I know you've seen me all season, and I've been one to say, bench Rashford, bench Rashford, bench Rashford. He has not performed. Start him, but if he's not performing in the first half, bench him. And I've been saying it all season because I mean, at the end of the day, I'm like this. Maybe I'm like the one in the first option. I would bench a player and let him train and give him minutes until he finds his own form. I won't do it, in game every week. So with that, I'm different to Ten Hag. But at the same time, if you look at it prospectively, we are not the ones in the hot seat. We're not the ones interacting with these players day to day to know, you know what I mean? And you have to give Marcus his credit. Even though I might be mad at him sometimes, he did score 30 plus goals last season. So he has credit in the bank for his performances and why the manager is trusting him. It's the same with Bruno, Casemiro, you know what I mean? Even Garnacho. People keep saying to me, Ahmad deserves a start. Well, if you look at Garnacho's performance last season, he scored like 4 or 5 match winners last season. He's had 3 or 4 key assists last season, and some of those came in the same game. So when I look at it from the perspective, I feel like I want to see as much from Ahmad or something close, even if it's not in terms of assists and goals, maybe in performances that I've seen from Garnacho in the way he built himself up, getting the minutes, because he didn't get a lot of starts in games last season. He came on with 10 minutes to go, 15 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. He started getting more minutes when he started scoring and getting more assists last season, if I'm not recalling correctly. You know? So this is why I want fans to be a little bit patient with the manager, patient with the youngsters who are breaking into the squad. Let them break into the squad. It's why it's called breaking into the squad, because they have to break in. You know what I mean? It's like a robbery. They have to rob minutes off of the starters in order to get game time. And then when they rob it and they perform well, then they get more and more game time. And if their performances in less minutes is exceeding the quality of the performances of a starter in more minutes, then their rules will be swapped. And this is how football should be done, based on meritocracy, not just like we feel or they think. You know what I mean? I don't know if you agree with me on that one, mental ball game, but that's just my last bit as I'm about to close the stream. What do you think?
No, no, no. I agree, man. I agree. And again, it again comes back to having options. If you have the options, you can do it very smartly. You can take players out of the team and tell them, I've taken you out because you aren't performing, and unless you start performing, you're not going back on that pitch. Pep Guardiola can do it very easily. Look at how he's handling Grealish now. He's saying he's not performing until he improves his game and brings it up to the standard. He's not coming back on the pitch. He couldn't do that in his first season. So he's got the resources now, so he can do it. Once we have options, if you look at it now, if Anthony starts performing right, it becomes very easy for Ten Hag to start Garnacho and Anthony on the wings and put Rashford on the bench. If Anthony was performing to the best of his abilities, he was scoring goals and providing assists. But because he doesn't have any other option, he has to put Rashford on the pitch right now. If Hoyland starts stinking up the place and doesn't put in the effort, doesn't score goals, is there anyone he can replace him with? No. So he has to start Hoyland because he doesn't have options. So give him at least one more season. Let him bring in at least three more players, I think, that he wants, along with the proper structure in place. And I think we'll see a lot more from Eric Ten Hag, and these players will start performing because they'll have competition for their places. Right now, Rashford is very relaxed because he knows no one can replace him. That's the whole thing. If you look at right back, even though Dalot is doing really well, if he decides to play like shit, there's no one to replace him right now. So
There's
he
Aaron
can,
Wan-Bissaka, but I understand. I get
yeah,
what
I
you're
mean
saying.
he's injured most of the time these days. So yeah,
To be
but
fair.
yeah, so it's all about having options to replace them, and that's why we need the academy to produce some players as well. And I like the stream that you did on the academy players. I watched it, man. There's some very good players coming from the academy, so I think we'll be in a good place in a couple of years if we have some patience.
Yeah, and I'm not just gonna take full credit for that. Like, at the end of the day, like I do watch a lot of the academy, and I watch a lot of the youth leagues, in the sense that the UEFA Youth League is a way is one of those things you are able to get a lot of live coverage of the different young academy teams from like Bayern Munich and Inter Milan and Real Madrid and the likes. So I pride myself in watching it because I feel like you always want to see what's coming next. You know what I mean? Because everyone is always talking about the next wonder kid, the next wonder kid. And you know what? For me, a wonder kid is the one that comes with the talent, performs consistently, and you know makes his claim for senior starts. You know what I mean? And I've just been watching our academy because I was like most fans. We should buy this player, buy that player, buy this player, buy that player. And then I was like, why aren't we creating some of these players anymore? We used to create lots of players, you know what I mean? And I started looking at the academy the last few years, and some of the players were coming had lots of hype, but the performances weren't great, the consistency wasn't there. And what shocked me is last season, the moment Eric Ten Hag changed the system for the way the academies play, and they build it out from the back, how much the young teams started flourishing, how much the different teams started flourishing. The one team that's finding difficulty was the under 21s. But right now, this season, they're finding balance. I mean, last season they finished eighth. This season, they're currently in fifth. And if they win the next 2, 3 games, they could be in contention for the title. So it's like, for me, performance is always going to come. And at the same time, I don't always fancy spending big money on players from different leagues or different clubs. I always feel like, there's a lot more just to buying players. A player has to have that fabric that kind of represent what your club is after. You know what I mean? Not just because a player is having an amazing season means he's going to come to your club and fit your fabric in the same sense. Because if you look at some of our top wingers, they always had a certain kind of X factor, a certain kind of style about them. You see Lissandro Martinez in our defense, and suddenly our defense seems like it's revolutionized. We always had that type of defender. If you go back on all our best teams, we had a Vidic, we had a Gabriel Heinze, a Gary Pallister, some of these guys, who was like, a Paul Ince. We had defenders that would bruise us, and they would strike fear into attackers and stuff like that. And then we always had midfielders who were like maestros, like a Paul Scholes, a Michael Carrick, and they were playing in a defensive or a central midfielder role. You know what I mean? That for me, that screams like a young Kobe Mainu coming through. Also a Dan Gore Jr. No one hasn't really seen much of the kid since his injury on loan right now, but I'm telling people, wait for him. He is going to be revolutionary when he sits next to Kobe, because they've done it in the youth leagues and they've destroyed teams. And I can't wait to see him get his first chance in the senior team coming up next season, maybe even in preseason. You know what I mean? There are lots of youngsters with talent. Lots of them have consistent performances, very good work ethics. Shea Lacey was another one I spoke about, but there's a lot of others. I'm gonna do another stream on that probably on Saturday if I could figure out the timing. I wanted to highlight another 5 academy prospects from the United Academy that could possibly break into the team, but they are not having as dazzling performances as the guys who are lighting up the charts right now, but they are also showing consistently very good performances. And Joe Scanlon comes to mind because he's a midfielder. He drops in in defense sometimes for the youth team, and he's very, very good going forward. Very, very dynamic midfielder, and I would really like to talk about him. So, if you guys have time, maybe on Saturday afternoon, I will do another stream about the scouting. And also a brief I would like to do about some young talent coming out from CONCACAF and as well as around the different conferences like Africa and stuff that are playing in certain academies, and what they could possibly do. Guys, mental ball game. Thank you for joining me, my bro. Thank you everyone for giving me the time this morning. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I just wanted to highlight some of the issues, the biggest issues that I think were facing us that we were not really talking about most of the season, like it talked about, but we put it to the wayside really. And what's the possibilities going forward? And United, I feel like we're in an upwards trajectory at the moment. Last season was very good. This season has not been so good, and I don't think it's a setback. I don't really think it's more like we're failing this season or we're regressing. I think the progress is still steady, but just a lot slower this season, based on the fact that with the amount of injuries we had and missed lack of key players, but we're still with a shout. So, guys, if you're catching it late, don't forget to smash the like buttons and subscribe. Mental Ball Game, thank you for joining me again this morning, my bro. I hope you're doing well. I was looking at your stream, so I followed you and I subscribed, and I will try my best to come onto one of your streams one of these days.
Cheers, mate. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, man,
Uh,
always welcome, bro. Love to talk to any Manchester United fan any day, anytime. As long as I'm live, bro, you could always come in. Maybe sometime you could always drop your email in the private chat sometime when you're here, and I'll send you a link where you could always access the channel. So you won't really need me to drop the link. You could just pop into the stream whenever you like, my bro.
sure,
And
sure. I've sent you a DM on Insta actually. Just have a look at that, okay?
all right, cool. I'll check it out right when I get off the
Yep.
stream. Guys,
All right.
Manu Tata, big up to you, my bro. I don't think he's gonna spend much money this summer, guys. I know a lot of people are super excited about the transfers. I did a transfer show the other morning where I was talking about 4 players, and they are not the highest profiles in the ones that we're looking at, but they are ones with the best, how I would say, the most cost effective in terms of for talent and ability and what they could bring to the team. And I think that's what we're going to be looking at going into this window, because I really do think that we're going to start the process on building the new stadium. And if that happens, I don't think we're going to spend $300 million this summer. I think it's more like going to be like a 150, 175, maybe boosted with the sales of some players because we're definitely going to see at least 4 to 5 players leave the club at the summer. And the replacements that are coming in aren't going to be too bad. There's a youngster from Brazil that's said to be coming in to replace Casemiro. There's also this young wonder kid from River Plate that we have recently been opening talks with, and I think it's about to be closed soon. And it's probably going to be one of the first announcements in the summer. And I'm talking about Matthew or Tanto. This youngster is very talented. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's going to be some shock signings, maybe one or two. Like I said to people, look out for Vinicius Jr. because Kylian Mbappe plays off the left. Also, look out for the other right winger at Real Madrid, Rodrigo Go. It might be a possibility. You never know based on the price. As Mick Ruby on MUFC Realist TV was talking about a lot for the last 2 weeks, Benjamin Sesko has been a long-term target. So he's definitely going to be in with a shout. His price tag is pretty neat as well, 42 million euros, which is not more than 35 million pounds. To be fair, I think it's going to be doable. There's going to be lots of other things coming in. Definitely look out for Goncalo Ignacio. He's a left-sided defender. Very, very good on the ball. Very good progressive passing ratios. He's in the highest percentile in Europe at this moment. Very good. The captain of Sporting Lisbon as well. And, you're going to look at, there's other youngsters, but, there's also mention of Xerxes for striker. But I don't think we're going to get him. His price at Genoa suddenly skyrocketed. I think we're going to steer clear. There's another youngster that might be coming in. He plays for Atalanta, but we already saw what Atalanta did last season when we went in for Hoyland. He was rated at 42 million and they wanted 75. So I'm not too sure if they're gonna accept a 48 million pound bid for young Giorgio Scalvini, who's been very, very good this season. I would liken him to the likes of Alessandro Nesta in the way he carries himself on the pitch. Very intelligent footballer, very good, very strong, tall, great in the air, very even better on the ball, and he can dribble and he can provide goals as well. He's done it already a few times this season, and look out for it, guys. It's going to be it's going to be an intense one this transfer window. I think it's going to be short, swift, and very quick because the way Omar Barada usually likes to do things, he's very set up. And if you do some research on him, you would understand why Man City usually gets a lot of their targets early. It's based on advice from Omar. And you can see it around the region of their 15 clubs around the globe. They always do things early, and it's very good for a manager if he could get his players early for preseason. That way they could already be training into the system, so when they hit the first game of the professional new season, they will almost be ready to go and raring. So guys, thank you for joining us. I hope to see you all tomorrow. Big up to each and every one of you. Tonight, don't forget, there's going to be Poppy. He's going to be live with the Football Power Hour, happy hour on a Friday. And I don't know about you, Mental Ball Game, but if you're interested in some football trivia, Poppy's going to have it. It's going to be featuring internationals this week. As you know, it's the international break, so that's going to be the theme. Guys, hope you all have a great weekend and join us later tonight, 10 p.m. UK on the happy hour. You can check it out from my channel. You can play the game. It's all done on Kahoots. We will share the links. It's going to be in the subscription. And as well, you're going to see it in the QR code on the channel before we start. Be here or be square. Big up to all of you joining me. Thank you to Mental Ball Game. Big up to you, Kenny Fan TV. Manu Tata, as usual. Big up to you, Stephanie. Good morning to you, GB. I wasn't on Trini time this morning, but you were. I'm pretty sure you borrowed my watch. Hope you have a good day, guys. Catch you all later, and that's the end of this stream today.